Upon a quick return trip to our present timeline in the Origin system, the Drifter receives an unlikely call for help from a very old friend.
To the erstwhile traitor and conspirator, known by the alias Drifter, Duviri is in grave peril. While you were off on your frivolous ventures, the lost island of Scholar's Landing returned, bringing with it that menace of the void of which the Scholar spoke. That she-demon has usurped our throne. She must be stopped! I await you on board the Zariman for a most urgent conference. His Radiant and Eternal Majesty, Dominus Thrax.
Currently speaking with the blue-blooded affect of royalty, the Child King of Duviri, Dominus Thrax, has stepped through the Looking Glass into Teshin's cave and out of Duviri. The Man in the Wall, who had retreated to the void at the end of the Hex questline, is staging a new assault, this time attacking the only other place the Drifter called home, just as Albrecht predicted. Perhaps the magnanimous Dr. Friday is outplaying our friend Wally, and maybe only a few moves away from Comey. Regardless, Albrecht isn't here, and Duviri is still our responsibility. Duviri still plays by our rules.
If you see the Scholar again, tell him his work was not finished here. Why did he abandon us? Contain her here. Seal her twisted story up. Remember what the Scholar told us. The fragmented ones tether down the strands of Pra that weave her false Duviri. Get to the heart of her power. Call forth the beast, then kill it!
Thrax informs us that the Indifference uses the Fragmented Ones, the large Murmur boss-type enemies, to manifest a strand of Craw, an alternate timeline, in this instance using it to create a replacement for Duviri that only consists of the lost island of Scholar's Landing, which was Albrecht and Trotti's abode during his time living in Duviri. Perhaps the Indifference is searching for a way to obstruct the Drifter's void power to reset time, and thus re-establish a foothold in 1999, by placing Nessie Rousulka on our throne. Regardless, we can nip this in the bud by destroying the Fragmented Ones and returning Duviri to normal. Thus begins a new tale, the Triumph of Dust.
The Triumph of Dust. Once there was a beautiful garden where cruel children played. Nobody ever had to grow up. And then, one day, a magical stranger came to teach them a new and fabulous game.
Look what she's driven me to! Assembling weapons! Oh, and me, a loving mother! Can you get it done?
In this mission, Major Rousulka, still puppeted by the Indifference, sets out to remind the Drifter and the Tenno of their shared history and the nature of the deal we made with him, delivered of course in cryptic storybook prose. Within the Isleweaver mission node in Duviri, Rousulka will act as a mouthpiece for the Man in the Wall, first introducing their arrival in Duviri, then persisting with more mockery of our attempts to thwart them.
Oh, poor little Thrax. The monster from Albrecht's stories finally came for him.
She's taunting me, just like Sifil said. Raising old ghosts out of the earth. Go down there and stop them.
The Indifference always seems to prioritize making the characters of Warframe's story experience self-doubt. It seems to intuitively understand that conceptual embodiment responds greatest to people with both the emotional intelligence to express their feelings and the executive function to control them. In this next line, they first make light of our effort to go to 1999 Sylvania, then ridicule coming back to Duviri, despite how hard we worked to leave.
You ran all the way back to my poisoned garden. Now you're chasing me here? What is it you need?
The question of what we need is not an honest one. It is merely to make us lose our conviction. In the ancient Greek philosophy of Stoicism, the question of ethics, of the good, relied heavily on the related question of what it meant to live a good life, called eudaimonia. The value that the Stoics decided represented the most enlightened or sagely lifestyle was ataraxia, from the Greek prefix a, meaning not, an absence or a negation, and teresian, meaning to disturb. It was a value that entered the Greek lexicon through Alexander the Great's conquest into India around 334 BCE, which is also around the same time as Zeno of Citium, founder of Stoicism, was born. Pyrrho, a leading figure in the development of Greek skepticism, was with Alexander during the expedition into India. Though I don't wish to assert the specific degree of influence, it is well established that cultural exchange between Greek and Indian scholars influenced the values of Stoicism. The Stoic ataraxia and the Buddhist value of nechama centered on the idea of non-attachment to the physical world, both of which are achieved through a proper understanding of nature so as to not be harmed or lose sight of virtue when bad things happen outside of your control. Achieving a state in which the Stoics called apatheia, meaning without suffering, and the Buddhists called nirvana, the extinguishing of suffering. The specifics of these philosophies are, of course, very distinct systems of thought that shouldn't just be equated as I have just done a moment ago. But I find that having an understanding of both nechama and ataraxia is necessary because Warframe takes so much influence from both Eastern and Western traditions. Just as there never was a sharp divide between East and West historically, so too should we embrace that all of Warframe's influences coexist in its story, as it may be important later. What is important right now is more so that prerequisite of understanding nature. When entering the Undercroft with either a survival or alchemy mission assigned to us, the Indifferents will comment on how much they loathe the presence of elements and matter in the void.
Albrecht's crucibles. Crimes against the laws of nature. Do not think for a second that I will let you desecrate my kingdom with your element mixing.
You only pollute this kingdom with these elements. Stop it. That's unnatural.
I thrive on nothingness. You choke on it.
The nothingness that existed before was serene and peaceful. The void was a nirvana of sorts. That was the only existence the Man in the Wall knew before Albrecht and the Orokin ripped it all away. To suddenly exist is horror enough, but to suddenly exist and comprehend pain, loss, difference, and the self? Are we not also cruel for perpetuating this existence, for denying it a place to simply be?
The paradox can't help you forever.
I can do this forever. I doubt the same is true for you. Look at it. This edifice of guilt. He knew what he did. What he took. You want to deny me a place? Even here, in the remains of your childhood. Not very nice of you, kiddo.
As a part of the Indifference's manipulation, it is chosen to craft horrifying effigies of Lloyd, Minerva, and Velimir throughout their version of Duviri, each one accompanied by a cruel dialectic written by the Man in the Wall. The first is Lloyd. Sprawled on the ground lay a pathetic figure. It was clearly dead, but seemed as if it might start whining again at any moment. The Queen of Duviri laughed. I had such a beautiful ending planned for that one, but he saved me the effort. How? Demanded the orphan. He died of a broken heart, waiting for a man who would never come back. A man who was secretly glad to be rid of his whining, clinging presence. But love, the orphan cried, feeling their last hope shrivel and die within them. Surely the power of love! The queen rested her splendid claw on the orphan's shoulder. A look that might have been pity crossed her face. The forefathers of your forefathers looked into the shining heart of an atom, scribbled their clever equations, and ripped it apart. Did they spare a thought for the age-old love between proton and neutron? Or did they only think of the bountiful energy they could harvest? In this scene, the Man in the Wall begins to ridicule the response Albrecht and Trotty gave to its interrogation. Ever since Whispers in the Wall, Warframe's story has been foreshadowing that the final conflict with the Man in the Wall would be an act of love. Yet here they are outright denying that any such attempt will help, consciously refusing to accept our love. Doing so by foreshadowing a rarely trod portion of Warframe's lore, the Radiation Wars, that ushered human society into a nuclear Armageddon, forcing the surviving humans to flee into space and rendering the Earth uninhabitable. The woman was clearly dead. The orphan thought at first she was just another of the dead Duviri people, but she wore no mask, and her body had the usual dull human symmetry and proportions. What killed her? The orphan asked. I did, of course, answered the Queen of Duviri. Why? Why not? A strange idea came into the orphan's mind. The queen knew at once that the glory was at work within them, just as it worked within her, but she held her peace. She was your mother, wasn't she? As much a mother as I ever had. the queen said. The glory quickly swallowed down the human weakness that rose in her like bile. She would be so proud. So why? The queen shrugged. Maybe I want to find out what it feels like to kill your parents. You kids made it look like fun. Fun, echoed the orphan hollowly. Baby spiders always eat their mother, said the queen with an exquisite grin. They need to. They wouldn't get strong otherwise. One day, you'll learn the lesson, kiddo. In Minerva's quote, we see more blatantly how the indifference works through manipulating emotion, referring to their power with a more directly biblical term, the glory, directly stealing and controlling the emotions of both players in this conversation. Ominously, the man in the wall foreshadows that we, the Tenno orphan, will be responsible for the death of our mother, the Lotus, eventually. To hammer this home, the indifference chooses to remind us of the Zariman 10-0 incident with Velimir's note, and how it manufactured the circumstances for specifically the parents of Tenno children to turn on their own kids. The adults turned on us. Did you do that? The parents turned on you, the queen corrected them graciously, prompted by the glory that enveloped her. The rest of the adults were spared, at first. The orphan snarled up at her. You can't bear it, can you? Anything good, anything wholesome, even the bond between a parent and child, you corrupt it all. Oh? You think so? The queen led the orphan to the lonely remains of a human male. The orphan felt an instinctive pang of sorrow. This cold meat had been a father once, no doubt about it. The glory filled the queen and she spoke. No parent ever really believes they did a good enough job, especially this lump. Every bad choice their kids make is a judgment on them. Their love holds them to a standard they can't meet. Stop. I don't corrupt their love. I don't have to. It was broken when I found it. Stop! The queen took a deep, nostalgic drag on her Effervon inhaler. Lungs that were no longer lungs spasmed in austere delight. The same crack runs through everything, kiddo, she explained. You want to deny it? That's on you.
The spider's helping her! Is keeping this false Duviri tethered to my kingdom. Cut it down. Oraxia. The scholar's pet. I heard the usurper imitating his voice. The spider is her servant now.
It is then that we must confront Oraxia, a spider frame originally left by Albrecht to aid us, now using her threads to aid Rousulka in tying this strand of craw to Duviri. Here I feel as though Oraxia is not merely included for the sake of delivering on a long-standing community meme. The Greek word orexia means a state of hunger or desire. Much like the Sanskrit word tanha, thirst, described a desire that keeps one from achieving non-attachment. So too did passion, hungers, work against the virtue of ataraxia in Stoic thought. Though I make this claim without evidence, I feel as though Oraxia is a portmanteau of sorts. She represents a hunger, a thirst, a desire to be disturbed, to be bound to suffering caused by life. Oraxia is a metaphor for the deep-rooted grudge that the man in the wall feels towards Albrecht, towards the Organ, towards us, towards existence itself.
Albrecht left nothing but dust and darkling spiders in his wake. Isn't it time for a new story? Not very nice, kiddo. Albrecht wanted her to help you. You had to put her down. She was crazy. Dumathilla next. Kiddo, is this where all your secrets are buried? Well, you do have a messy mind. My forces will sort it out. Why are you fighting, kiddo? This place was your prison. We can dismantle its pieces together. Valiant, honorable, and an utter waste of energy.
Her grip weakens at last. Call forth the beast that binds her to Duviri.
Within the arena, the three knocks of the Indifference's fingers are heard as we approach the lidless eye and summon the fragmented one.
They're all real! All the bad old memories. Here's one now.
As we fight, they continue their attempts to disturb us.
I have uses for deal breakers!
your throne, Your Majesty.
And as we bring this spiral to its end, we return Duviri to as it was before. For now, a new fragmented one may still be made. The strand of Craw may be woven again, so until we can make sure it's safe, we welcome a very unwelcome house guest to our dormizome on the Zariman. During Operation 8-Claw, it's time for a sleepover with Dominus Thrax.
For years, this place has mocked me from above. And now, through sheer force of will, I have reached it. How Bombastine will envy me for this bold expedition. I claim this proud steel bastion in the name of Thrax. Perhaps next I'll venture beyond the wall. Automated servants. How cheap, though loyal.
With many harsh things to say about our space condo, I feel that we are plenty motivated to finish this mission just to have him out of our hair as soon as possible, especially as it is accompanied by no shortage of, frankly, offensive self-aggrandizements.
Do not forget, we were friends once. Mithila will not betray me. She knows what I do to conspirators. All that lamentation about the executions. And yet here you are. None the worse for them. I warned you not to leave. Where was your sword arm when the usurper came? I will spit in its leering face! Effigy of dust, mutilated void dog! She weaves the strands of Kra to tether her false Duviri to the true. You must be bold. Like I taught you, you tried to rebel, as children always do. But I taught you respect. In a way, I was your real father, wasn't I? Perhaps a Krithis has some bauble to tempt you?
At the same time, it is still clear to see how much fear still rules his decision-making. Though he speaks with confidence, it was fear that drove Thrax out of Duviri, and fear that keeps him from venturing further without more assurances.
I hear angel song. What a cursed cradle you were rocked in. She can't change the story. It's written, finished, done. That thing on my throne, whatever face it wears now, it was here before Duviri. It means to devour me. Think not that I stand alone. My legions would come if I summoned them. This is far enough. I shall manifest no further in. Not without my centurions.
Though he is a king of sorts, we must still remember that Thrax is just a child, one accustomed to the simplicity of a child's parable. The world beyond Duviri is legitimately frightening. In Thrax's idle animations, we see him as he shifts back and forth between uncontrolled weeping and an artificial textbook pantomime of bravado, a fitting portrayal of a boy unfit to be king.
I remember when I first opened the door onto that smiling face. I was dying all along. Did you know that? Dying from the poison I sucked down to kill the tech rot in my lungs. Until it held out my own severed hand to me and offered me life. Tear away a finger, hack off a hand, an arm, a face. Keep on taking and see what grins back at you. Do you remember the Zariman? How much you learned once the restraints were taken off. Think what we could do here, together.
For a few moments during the Isleweaver mission, we can hear Rousulka have a lucid thought. Explain to us why she made the Faustian bargain with the Indifference. If you take the time to explore Scholar's Landing, we can recover some of the memories, the feelings that Rousulka harbored throughout her life, readable in our codex. Little Miss Muffet. Little Miss Muffet sat on a tuffet, eating of curds and whey. There came a big spider, who sat down beside her, and frightened Miss Muffet away. This is one variant of the nursery rhyme Little Miss Muffet, first put to print in the 1805 book Songs for the Nursery, though it most likely predates the publication as a cultural touchstone spread by word of mouth. Some try to analyze the rhyme as a metaphor for Mary Queen of Scots being unable to assert Catholic dominance upon her return to Scotland due to the critiques of John Knox, a leading figure in the Scottish Protestant Reformation. This is a very unlikely interpretation, as Little Miss Muffet is more like likely a variation on other similar-sounding nursery rhymes of the era. As an artifact of cultural drift, with no distinct origin point in history, the rhyme has always been changed and adapted to suit the time and place, such as this variant made by my brother-in-law just a few years ago. Little Miss Muffet sat on her tuffet, eating her curds and whey, when a little black spider sat down beside her, so she sprayed that bitch with raid. Yet it is precisely the forced reading as veiled politics that I think lends a better foil for mapping the rhyme onto the Triumph of Dust, and allows us to bring a greater understanding of the story to light. Think about how Rousulka has been presented to us throughout this story. She is, like Mary Queen of Scots, presented as a foreign interloper. Just as Mary had connection to Scotland through royal blood, she had not lived in nor was raised in Scottish culture. Rousulka has a connection to Duviri only by virtue of being possessed by the Man in the Wall, the blue blood of the Void's eldritch god. But she was not raised here as Thrax and the Drifter were. The word tuffet likely originally referred to a grass hill or mound, but thanks to the debate around the nursery rhyme's meaning, the word tuffet came to be seen as a sort of short chair, stool, or seat, and Rousulka has, in fact, usurped the literal seat of power from Thrax. The exact phrasing of "along came a spider" is yet another common variation of this often adapted poem, as well as the title of the new codex entry, revealing the inner turmoil of Rousulka's psyche and how the Man in the Wall exploited her pain to find his new herald.
Once upon a time, there was a little girl. An envious little girl who watched as the whole world had more than she did. All the nice things, all the expensive things. And so, she took what she didn't have. And along came a spider who told her that everyone in the world would always have more than she did. But the spider said he could eat it all up for her. But she clung to her favorite toy and filled her life with her family and told the spider to go away.
In the first thread of the fairy tale, we realize that each of these segments will act as an allegory to the life and memories of Nessie Rousulka. This first section recounting her life as a young child, before the loss of her family and becoming an orphan of war. The imagery of the spider continuing the story of Letty Garcia, who, in her kinematic instant messenger dialogues, described her symptoms of chronic depression as spiders, to capture the feeling of the incessant strife it caused, yet also as a means to reassert her agency by minimizing the power depression has over her by transforming it into an easily squishable bug. For Rousulka, however, it seems that the self-doubt, the anxiety, and the feelings of loneliness became progressively worse throughout the course of her life.
Once upon a time, there was a little girl. A frightened little girl who ran and hid and was so afraid of everything around her. But most of all, she was afraid to die. And along came a spider who told her that everything we love in this world withers and dies. But the spider said he could eat it all up for her. But she hid her fear away in the arms of strangers and told the spider to go away.
In the second thread, we see Rousulka's memories during wartime, having lost her family and experiencing the regular recurrence of fearing for her life. It was then that Minerva and Velimir found and adopted her, finding another refuge, however temporary, in her newfound family.
Once upon a time, there was a little girl. A sad little girl who watched as the world went wrong. Watched as people fought, as people lied. A sad little girl who watched as her parents grew farther and farther apart. And along came a spider who told her that everything in the world always ended in sadness. But the spider said he could eat it all up for her. But she turned away from the sadness and filled her life with faith and told the spider to go away.
In the third thread, Rousulka is growing up, and though Velimir and Minerva are trying their best, the strain of parenthood is beginning to test their relationship. Compared to the life of espionage, the stability of a happy home is an unfamiliar challenge. Rousulka internalizing the conflict, blaming herself for not being able to keep them happy. So feeling both alienated and vulnerable, she found a new source of stability, the theocratic, fascist, paramilitary organization known as the Skuldra.
Once upon a time, there was a little girl, a joyful little girl, whose life was filled with meaning and happiness. She filled her world with dolls on strings and made them dance. And along came a spider, who told her that everything was a lie, and all her happiness was a shallow pane of glass. But the spider said he could eat it all up for her. But she turned away from the joy and filled her life with war and told the spider to go away.
In the fourth thread, Rousulka recounts her time as a person of authority in the Skuldra's military hierarchy, the puppets in her memory being the soldiers under her command, this being a time in her life when she felt some happiness, using the various skills that her parents taught her to get ahead and prepare her squadron. But basic training can't last forever. The state will want a return on its investment. The tech rot outbreak is approaching, and the civilian purge is upon us.
Once upon a time, there was a little girl. An angry little girl, whose life was filled with fury and rage. She hurt and maimed, and was hurt and maimed in return. And along came a spider, who told her that everything in the world always ended in anger. But the spider said he could eat it all up for her. But she turned away and realized she had nothing else to fill her life with. The spider smiled, and he ate her all up.
In the last thread, we find Rousulka in the midst of the war in Holvania, a toxic and traumatizing cycle of witnessing and committing atrocity after atrocity. Rousulka had chased a life where nothing would leave her. She abandoned envy, fear, love, sorrow, joy, and anger, all in the pursuit of never being vulnerable, never being disturbed. She abandoned everything in pursuit of her own personal ataraxia. Yet she forgot, perhaps never even learned, the foundational wisdom that Stoicism was built upon. Zeno of Citium, founder of Stoicism, was the student of Crates the Cynic, the principal teaching of the Cynics to be the embrace of one's feelings and passion as a part of our nature, to not care for the arbitrary whims of social norms, to not be perturbed by their absence specifically, and if you have none, you will not yearn for it, but you will live satisfied with what you have, not desiring what you do not have, nor displeased with whatever comes your way. Crates of Thebes, Fragment 4a. Without accepting yourself and the world for what it is, without embracing your nature, the pursuit of ataraxia will not be a virtue. It will leave you empty. For Rousulka, ataraxia left a void inside her. That void beckoned the indifference. The man in the wall became the spider within her. As the newest herald of the void, Rousulka's story is a tragic one. It is uncertain how much of her true self is left, but, like the last remnant of Pandora's box, it is not a story without hope. Upon completing all of the fragments, the Tenno will receive an unmarked message to their inbox, only containing one short sentence. For when soul and Lua align, the lost shall find their way home. Along with the personal effects of Major Rousulka, we bring the message to Velimir and Minerva, and they tell us of the passphrase, reminding us of the call, "On empty crossroads, seek the eclipse," which they gave us back when they first arrived at the Holvanian Mall. Turns out the message we received is the correct response, used by them to confirm if they were communicating over a secure line, that they were speaking to the right person. It is, at the very least, proof that there is reason to hope that little Nessie may still be saved. Rousulka may have become the spider from her nightmares, but a spider is a resilient little bug, like Mathila said while reminding us of another nursery rhyme.
Oh, she's banished for now. but she'll climb back up the water spout again.
Thank you for watching, my friends. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, consider subscribing to the channel. Not many of my viewers actually take the time to subscribe, but it would help me out as the channel is still quite small. I hope to have another video out soon, but in the meantime, take care of yourselves and stay true. What makes a man turn neutral? Lust for gold? Power? Or are they just born with a heart full of neutrality? I hate these filthy neutrals. With enemies, you know where they stand, but with neutrals, who knows? It sickens me. This book is a comparative exploration of two unlikely games, Steel Rising and Lies of P. Both released in 2023, both set in pivotal moments of French history, both games inspired by the games Dark Souls and Bloodborne by acclaimed studio From Software. Both stories about robots centered around the motif of puppetry and dolls. Both stories about the human spirit and what it means to be a real person. Stories inspired by Italian cultural touchstones like Commedia dell'arte and Pinocchio, yet vastly different in scope and execution. Steel Rising was widely panned by critics, while Lies of P is widely praised as the best Souls-like to be made by a non-From Software studio. While both a kind of science fiction, one of these games is a historical fantasy and the other a historical fiction. Yet what does it mean for a video game story to be either? Because of that question, both of these games share a very similar problem. Modern game development has a problem. Video games are considered an entertainment medium, one that is mostly for children. To reach maturity as an art form, games and their developers had to expand the medium into deep, affecting, and unique narratives that can only be accomplished by ludonarrative, by writing a story through authoring an experience. For decades, the goal has been to demonstrate to the broadest possible audience an ability to have culturally important stories. Stories like Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, Invisible Man, To Kill a Mockingbird, or Isaac Asimov's I, Robot. Stories that mean something to people because they can see their real values and their struggles reflected in fiction. Games accomplish this feat every year. What kinds of stories are culturally important today? After a brief respite from the wars of the 20th century, today's culture is one defined by increasing political turmoil. The struggles of one's nation and the international stage have entered the home. They are our personal struggles. We have entered into the era of an anti-civil rights movement. The smallest and most vulnerable scapegoats have been exaggerated to the fate of society itself by politicians whose true motives are merely to empower and enrich themselves by convincing society to champion its own collapse. The deep stories that will be remembered by history will be the stories that speak to this personal political upheaval. Narrative-centered games clearly want to have this kind of place in history, as everything from Call of Duty and Assassin's Creed to boutique stories like Detroit Become Human market themselves around historical and political intrigue. Yet we are also in a time where being labeled political is a pejorative that will usher in waves of criticism and boycotts before even a second of the game has been seen by the public. Everything is woke and evil until a week after release, then it's old news. It is fascinating, then, that some game developers would first be doggedly inspired by history, culture, and politics while making a game, only to censor themselves the moment people start looking at the final product. What drives a game to raise its hands and cry apolitical? What drives a game to censor whole schools of philosophy from commenting when seeking publicity? What drives a game to be so politically inspired only to censor itself at the midnight hour? This is All Puppets Are Bastards. Liberty and labor in the age of AI. L'union fait la force.